Hello, everybody. So, I think it was Smoke asked about knife making tools and the setup they have on Forged in Fire. I used to have a lot of the tools that they have on Forged in Fire in this shop. The forge that they used to be on that stand where that Coke thing is. It was next to that smaller one. And since I never made Damascus, I never even really used that one. I ended up selling it as new. I bought it because I thought I was going to be making bigger things. And it just turned out that the stuff that I like to make is mostly, 12 inches in blade length or less. And at that size, the 12 inches are hard to make. And that bigger forge would be nice. But I don't make that many of those. Most of the knives I make are about 7 or 8 inches in blade length. And for that little Laredo forge, the little single burner one there, it works really well. I have a hose on there that's a 30 PSI hose, so it dumps more propane in faster and makes the fire hotter. I don't know if I would do that, but it melts fire bricks, and that's cool. So, you're gonna make knives, you're gonna need an anvil, right? Really, you're gonna need more than that. This is what I have for forging. That's a truck wheel, and I think that's like 8-inch pipe. And then it's topped with a piece of sheet steel, looks like 1/4-inch plate, something like that. And it has some widgets welded on. I bought this thing as is for $100. It did not have the anvil on it, but it did have the vices on it, which we'll talk about. You can find shit like this. I found this on Craigslist. I would look on local blacksmiths forums and whatever, and I would find knife makers in your area that are cool and talk to them and ask them if they have extra shit like this. See if they would help somebody starting out. Because at least myself personally, every knife maker I've ever met was interested in at least helping you if it didn't cost them anything. And if they had something like a piece of fucking railroad tie or something that didn't cost them anything and it would make a good anvil, they might give you something like that. And, as such, I've got 2 pieces of track there. So, yeah, blacksmiths accumulate this kind of shit. I used to have 3 other anvils in this garage, but anvils are worth money, and sold those too, and they're heavy. That's not anything you want to move. This thing I'm willing to take the pain of moving. This anvil that's on it is the one that I like to use. I bought several anvils, and this one was the cheapest one. And I bought it as more of a joke. I wanted to see how bad a cast steel Chinese anvil is. Well, it's pretty good. I've forged every knife I've ever forged pretty much on this thing. It cost $160-something if you bought it at full price on eBay, free shipping. And there's a make offer button on it to this day. And if you make an offer on it of, I think it was $129, they took it. So go and try making some offers on, they are 66-pound cast steel anvils on eBay. And on eBay, they're painted blue, usually. In the pictures, I don't know why, but they're, China, so who fucking knows. But what I did is a silicone epoxied that to the stand, and then the stand to the floor, and with some acetone that'll come off, and it makes a rock solid thing to actually forge on. And this is important. A lot of people don't talk about the fact that all of this needs to not move, including the vices. This is critical because you can lock shit into these and beat on it while it's hot. And this thing is a pipe vise. Oh, fuck, I'm walking in spiders. But that thing's a pipe vise that it doesn't seem like a useful thing for blacksmithing, but I've had a couple of things pop up where it was round, and man, is that the thing to lock onto that shit with. That machinist vise is sucky for that. I think whoever used this before was out in the country somewhere shoeing horses or something like that, and they had an anvil on a stand, and this was like their little workbench. But for me, I'm really tall, And this anvil stand, I don't know if you can tell, is about 3.5 or 4 feet off the ground. That's really tall for an anvil stand. And like, it's maybe a little taller for me than it should be. It should probably be, my anvil should probably be there. But I'm living with it here because honestly, most of the stuff I work on is kind of small, and I want less powerful, more accurate hits, and it being a little higher helps me do that. So like, tailor your shit to what you're doing and to you. Like, this is such an athletic endeavor just to fucking forge iron that you should have custom built tools to do it, in my opinion. Oh, the filing cabinet. You can pick these up cheap and they make a great thing just to store shit in. The next thing that you're gonna need is a bandsaw, which used to be over there. And what I would get is a swag Portaband table. And I would buy the table and then buy a saw for it on eBay, used. Because you're gonna beat the piss out of that saw. Like, there's nobody that's gonna abuse a fucking, handheld bandsaw like a knife maker will. But this gives you the ability to pretty much cut anything you want. The blades do dull out and they break, and that sucks. But they're like 3 for $20 at Lowe's, and they last long enough, especially if you're not cutting hard shit. Don't cut hardened shit with it. And if you cut something like 01 has carbides in it occasionally that will eat bandsaw blades. And that's a thing. The only way to get through that is to go in with a cutoff wheel or a Dremel or something like that and just grind out that carbide and then keep cutting. Like, the steel bandsaw blade will not cut through it. After the bandsaw, you're gonna need a drill press for sure, and that actually used to be over there too. My drill press was a million years old, and I bought it in high school, and it was worn out, and it was time. I'm really trying to downsize and cut down on shit, and I really want a new drill press, and I let her go. I don't know, it's still at a pawn shop. I could go get it back, but it's money, and money's tight right now. It's one of those things, like, I get rid of some things, and I never regret it, and I get rid of some things, and I'm going to miss it. But it's not like a real miss. It's like an unhealthy attachment. And that's half of why I got rid of it. And so drill press wise, I did everything I ever needed to do with knives with a $150 Hitachi drill press I bought at Lowe's. Now, do you need a Hitachi? No. I would go to Lowe's and spend whatever $100-$150 will get you. It'll work. Like, if it didn't work, Lowe's wouldn't be able to sell so many of them. If you have an issue with it, take it back to Lowe's. And not that I love Lowe's or whatever, they're just like a hardware store that's within walking distance of where my shop is. And I fucking hate Lowe's. But not as much as I fucking hate Sutherland's. That's a whole different story. Sutherland's asked me for my bag last time I was in there because they thought I was going to steal shit. And I'm like, I went and grabbed the one can of paint that I needed that the other store didn't have, carrying my bag, walked up, handed them the can of paint, started checking out, and they're like, you really should have given us the bag. I'm like, I really should have stolen the can of paint after you were a fucking cunt. And then after we were done checking out, like, well, it's our store policy not to have the bag. I'm like, it's my policy not to go anywhere without a gun, and my gun is in the bag. And then I left. So, fuck Sutherland's. Fun note in the middle of this. Where were we? Drill presses. So, belt sanders. Belt sanders are, that's a complicated subject, really. That could be its own video. But the one on the show that you asked about, it was an Ameribraid. I don't know what it was on later seasons, but Ameribraid makes really good grinders for really good money. That's what used to be right there, and it's what made that gray stain on the wall. Don't put a grinder up against a white wall. Anyway, I don't know if I would go that route. It depends on what you're wanting to do. If you're wanting to do a whole bunch of really fancy knives, yeah, you're going to need the Ameribraid with all the attachments and shit. And I would go that route. If you're wanting to make kind of some basic stuff for yourself, the thing I would get is a Kalamazoo grinder. And I would get it in a 2x48. And that's what I would run. Now, a Kalamazoo will not do, you know, finger choils and stuff like that. It's not going to do that kind of shit. But you can buy a $200 spindle sander, and it actually does that pretty well. All the finger grooves and finger choils I ever did were on a spindle sander. So if you're on a budget, I would get a spindle sander and a Kalamazoo, because a Kalamazoo grinder, last I checked, was like $250 to $450 depending on which size you got. And it's kind of a vertical, just belt grinder. But that's really all you need. I think it can go horizontal too. Whatever I got, I would want to make sure it could do horizontal, because I need horizontal to do some of the stuff that I do. And like, that's the thing in a belt grinder, like really the Ameribraid is awesome because it can do so much stuff. But the one thing it can't do is go horizontal. And the belt sander that I also let go of was a 6-inch by 48-inch belt sander, the big boy. And that thing was really handy for doing handles and shit like that. But it was so old that the wiring was falling apart and I couldn't fix it and whatever. And the guy was willing to give me $100 for it. And I'm like, yeah, I could use the $100. And I'm going to replace it with a brand new machine eventually. I'll get like a Grizzly one or something. That's the other thing, is anything you need like this, go to Grizzly and search there. And if you're in the Ozarks, Grizzly has a big store in the Ozarks. They sell a lot of shit that a knife maker could use, like especially electrical powered tools. They have a 2x72 belt grinder that's fucking awesome. It's kind of like that Kalamazoo, and it's made in China, but I would 100% buy a Grizzly. My spindle sander was a Grizzly, in fact. That's probably my next shop. I'm going to go to Grizzly and just buy everything. Now that I think about it, that's what I'm going to do. Because basically what I've done is downsize to this forging setup and the small forge. And at best, I think I'm going to be playing around and making the kind of shit that I like to make. And all I need to do that is like a handful of electric tools on top of this. And I'd want new ones anyway. So, I don't know. If you're really wanting to get into like knife making as an art form, and like you want to make stuff that sells for thousands of dollars, I would advise you to spend the money on the Ameribraid. It does a lot of shit that you need. I would get their Pimp Daddiest package. And I would get the one that you can run from a 110 outlet and not the 220 outlet. Even if you have 220 power, I have a 220 outlet over there, and that's why I bought that one. But any place I go after this, I don't have that guaranteed. So I sold my Ameribraid. And that hurt. But honestly, it was way too much machine for the stuff that I'd use a grinder for. I forged my shit almost exclusively to shape, and I was using different grinders to shape out the handles. So, you know, we'll figure that out. I can buy better tools to do the job that I was doing. And as this is now a hobby and not really a business, I'm going to be doing that. But if you are going into it as a business, I would do what I did and pony up the money and get real tools. This was a professional shop in here. If you go back and look at pictures of it on Instagram, almost any knife maker in the world would have been happy to work in this shop. It was not, you know, the biggest or the most well organized or whatever, but it had everything you needed, and it fit in a 1-car garage, which I think is pretty cool. I guess maybe this is just another goodbye to the shop video, because I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss this house too, this shop in particular. I built that rack up there for sanding belts. Those are 2-inch dowel rods that I sunk into an oak board. Sorry, 2 oak boards with a Forstner bit. Which, if you don't know about those, they're really cool. They drill holes. They're kind of like this thing. but they come in varying sizes, and you can use them on power tools. This one is for like a hand tool like this thing, which, by the way, if you really need to drill holes, this is one of those things that I see like survival tools now that are like, you can drill a hole and make a peg and whatever. If you have a knife and this, you can do all this shit. Have, you know, this thing, and then they have sets of these bits that come in a thing kind of like that. You can drill the holes you want. Survival gimmicks. I guess it is cool to have one tool on your belt that can make the shit that fits together. And like, that's the thing, is it's a gimmick and I want it. But I know I have this, but I want it. I don't know. Where were we? Belt sanders? That's about all I have to say about belt sanders for now. There's probably more that I'm forgetting. If you have questions about this shit, ask. I have years of research into what to buy on this shit. And like, I don't know how we do review videos now, but like, I guess here in the shop, in the debris of what's left, is the place to do review videos on knife making tools. And that's the thing, is I've seen a lot of videos from a lot of people on, you know, knife making and how to do knife making and whatever. I guess not many of their knife making videos are made in a shop where they obviously make knives, or did. Like, the dust from the outline of the shit that was bolted to this table, that's from sanding shit. I don't know. It seems to me that YouTube is full of people that, like, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but they're like Cody Lundin and Dave Canterbury. Cody Lundin knows a lot about survival, right? So does Dave Canterbury. But they were on a show where they were a TV star portraying a thing, and that none of that was real. And there's a lot of that with YouTube. Like, I don't know. It annoys me to see shit like that. And I was guilty of that too. I have plenty of videos where I'm like reviewing a gun that, you know, didn't have many rounds through it. But at the same time, I think some of that's kind of interesting, because if you watch enough of the videos, you get 100, you know, first initial impressions. That's kind of cool. But it's not as useful as, like, you know, I have this fucking shotgun that's just like, you know, beat to shit and spray painted and has obviously been shot thousands and thousands of times. I don't know. I think those are cooler reviews. And that's half of why, like, this isn't a gun review channel anymore. And I don't really know what this is. This is just my journal at this point for whatever my future adventures are. I am planning a video now for my buddy that is, he and I have had this thing going back and forth for years, which is the James Bond kit. And like, this is not a kit most people would think to pack. Like, everyone does survival kits and everyone does, you know, bug out bags and fucking, you know, combat loadouts even maybe. But like, the James Bond kit is very specific. It's like EDC taken to the next level. And my next version of this kit is going to be my Apocalypse James Bond kit. And I'm going to make a big video on that for him, and y'all can enjoy that too. If you have any more questions about knife making or what you would need to get started, ask them in the comments here. If you're asking me what I would buy, definitely get a forging setup. This is cheap, it's easy to make shit with, and it'll save you a lot of money. And from there, any way to grind, any way to drill holes in metal, and any way to cut metal. That's what I would buy. Thanks for watching.